right, welcome everyone back to another episode. My name is Dr. Peter Van Cleek, and today I wanted to talk about the Christian worldview, apologetics, and how the scripture works with that. And if you recall, it's been a couple years ago at this point that we were told that it's impossible to have a robust apologetic while holding to a standard sacred text because it's not going to withstand the pressures of opposing worldviews. And so today I wanted to talk a little bit with you about atheism. And so atheism is going to fall under its own pressure just by very little reasoning, I think. And certainly this isn't like a knockdown argument because there can be objections to it, of course, because it's an argument. But it does seem to have considerable potency. So consider this for a moment. What is at the ground of atheism? What is it that drives the human animal? The thing that drives the human animal is survival, whether it's individual survival, that is to say that I live long, or collective survival, that my genes are carried on from generation to generation. But survival is at the core. It's what drives us in a choosing of a mate and procuring power, whether that be money or physical power or military power. These are the things that move us, very much like the animals. And so we have to ask the question of whether or not truth is embedded in the reality of survival. Is it part and parcel with survival? And we come to the conclusion the answer is no. No, you don't need truth to survive. You just need a series of reliable experiences. If you have a series of reliable experiences, this may be sufficient enough to survive, but that doesn't make it true. So let me give you an example. An example that's used is, imagine that we're part of a primitive tribe and our witch doctor says, don't eat this mushroom over here because there's an evil spirit in the mushroom. And if you eat it, then in some way the evil spirit will manifest itself in you. And when it manifests itself in you, you will die, right? And so the reliable experience is we've seen multiple people eat this mushroom. We've seen multiple people die because of it, because of this manifestation of the spirit. And I don't want to die. And therefore, I don't want to eat that mushroom because I don't want anything to do with this terrible spirit that will kill me. And so I don't eat it, and therefore I survive, right? And those I teach my sons and my daughters not to eat it and not to get entangled with this evil spirit, and then they'll survive as well. The question is whether or not that's true, right? We have a reliable experience. It is contributing to survival, but is it true that it is an evil spirit that's killing us as, the people of our tribe? And it seems to me that we don't need to do that, right? We can just say that the chemical makeup of the mushroom does not work well with the human animal, and when you eat it, it stops your heart, right? So it's just chemistry, that's it. But you don't need to know the chemistry to survive, right? You don't need to know the truth to survive. You just need to have reliable experience, and that's it. And so this is what moves us as the human animal according to evolution. This drive to survive that does not entail, especially not necessarily, truth. And so this goes from our actions, our behaviors, certainly, but it also goes to the way we think. Because even our brain, right? There's no soul, right? There's no mind. There's just brain. The brain is also a product of this evolutionary system that is geared towards survival. So the things we think about and the deliverance of the mind the brain are also survival driven, not truth driven. And so as a result, the things that we think are suitable to our survival, whether it helps us in our society or our culture, helps us get that job, it helps us make more money, it helps us find a better mate, right? The way we think about things helps us survive. But because we've seen that all we need is reliable experience, and we don't need truth, then we begin to ask ourselves, well, are the deliverances of our mind, of our brain, the way our brain works, are those things true? Well, no. Well, maybe, but we don't know. We don't know because we have recognized that truth is not a necessary component to survival or reliable experience. And so what are some of the things that our brain thinks up, right? Well, it thinks up, well, maybe I like that job or I like that job. I like that color shirt. I like that color shirt. Our brain does that kind of stuff. And that should be geared towards survival. And we know that if I wear this shirt on a date, then the girls usually like me. And if I wear this shirt, then they don't like me, right? So you get this reliable experience or something like that. But you know what else is one of the things that our brain one of the deliverances of our brain? The actual idea of evolution, right? The actual idea of evolution is also geared toward survival. The idea itself would be geared toward survival. The question now is whether or not the idea is true. And it would seem at this point that someone who holds to evolution would at least have to consider the fact that given this base drive of survival, and given the fact that survival does not necessarily entail things like truth, then even the idea of evolution itself may not be true. It's just merely a mechanism for survival. So anytime someone tries to tell me, as a Christian, that I am descended from monkeys, or that I am descended from some lower life form or some protein long, long ago, the concept itself is not true, nor can the person tell me it's true. All they can say is that it's conducive to their survival. But it might just be just as much, advice from a witch doctor, right? Because it's helping this person survive, let's say. But is it actually true? And so if we actually want to find out what's true, then we're going to have to step beyond the merely physical. Because even our brain, right, is a function of, or is a product of evolution. And its functions, the brain's functions, are aimed toward survival and not toward truth. So when someone says believe in evolution or think that evolution is true, they have no grounds to say that, right? It's self-defeating. Self-defeating. Christian worldview, on the other hand, that we argue for is, right, just operate just within our system, that there is a triune God. He actually exists. He's a real fact. And as a triune God, he has given to us revelation in creation, in his Son, and in the Scripture. And in the Scripture, he says things about his own words. God says things about his own words. And because he's God, and because he's created us, and because he's good, and because he tells the truth and cannot lie, and because he's the first principle of being, and his words are the first principle of theological knowledge, or knowledge about God, that seems to stand the test of reason, right? That God would be the first principle because there's nothing before him. He's the first principle of being. And that what he says about his own words, right? He would be kind of the ground for his own words. And because God is this way, then what he says about himself, we should accept, right? And so God says that he is good. God says that he is true. God says he is powerful. And he also says things about the Scriptures themselves. And before you're like, oh my goodness, this is a circular argument. No, this is our first principle. This is where we start. In the same way I didn't start my argument by saying, oh, well, prove to me that matter has always existed or that gravity has always existed. That's not where my argument went. My argument went to, well, let's talk about the nature of evolution and survival. Let's just kind of jump right in the middle of it, right? So it's difficult for you to question our first principles because that's the nature of first principles. They don't have anything that undergird them or strengthen them, or that kind of support them. It is that place upon which the Christian stands and asserts his position. So the Christian says, yes, there is a God. He has revealed himself, and he has said things about his own revelation. What kind of things has he said? Well, it seems to be a pretty plain reading, is that not one jot or one tittle will pass from the law till all is fulfilled. That this book of the law shall not depart out of thy mouth, nor out of the mouth of thy seed, nor out of the mouth of thy seed's seed from henceforth and forever. That all Scripture is given by inspiration of God, and is profitable for doctrine, reproof, correction, instruction, and righteousness, that the man of God may be thoroughly furnished, completely furnished, unto all good works. Yeah. So God has said things about his words, and because God's the one saying them in his words, then we're compelled to believe them. But lastly, it does seem that the bulk of the church, especially in the West, it seems has kind of abandoned that idea, has stepped away from that idea, and has moved more toward reliability. If you listen to people like William Lane Craig, he'll talk to you about how reliable the Bible is. This is at the core of his bibliology, the way he defends scriptures, that it's reliable. If you look at the vast majority of Christian textual scholars, they will tell you that, no, it's reliable. The Bible is a reliable representation of the original, or it's a reliable representation of the Christian gospel. Or like they would say, this is as close as we can get to the original, and it is reliable, right? This is where we have come in the church. But now we get to ask the same question that we ask of the atheist. And that question is, does reliability necessarily entail truth? Or is reliability simply an expression of results that happen over and over and that seem to work out for us? It says what I think it should say, right? Something like that. It doesn't have to be about truth anymore. It has to be about whether or not it says what I think it should say, or whatever the scholars think it should say, right? And then we just think whatever they think it should say. But how do we make how do those who oppose the standard sacred text, how is it they make the case that mere reliability, that's it, reliable experiences, is enough to secure for us the truth? It doesn't seem like it would be. Certainly the Bible doesn't teach mere reliability. The Bible teaches something much stronger than that, something along the lines of knowledge, certainty, certitude. But this is not the language the church uses anymore about the Bible. So I guess in this video, I just wanted to demonstrate really three things. One, yes, we can talk about apologetics with opposing worldviews, right? Often the worldview kind of crumbles under itself. Maybe next week, Lord willing, we'll do Islam and show how it kind of breaks itself. It eats itself, right? We can also make the case, it is reasonable, that God exists, the triune God exists, that the triune God has revealed himself, and as the first principle of being, he has given us something to know him, which would be the first principle of theological knowledge, or knowledge about God. And that in that first principle of theological knowledge, we call the Bible, God says something about his own words, just like he says something about his person, about his character, about his own names, about the future, about his power, right? He says something about his own words. This seems to follow quite easily. But the question of why it is now that the church has adopted some idea of reliability, mere reliability, that we achieve through evidential means, that does not seem to be Christian at all. It doesn't seem to be remotely Christian, at least not that language, just reliable. And it does seem it also is sliding in an unchristian direction. That's part of what we're trying to do. We're trying to raise a flag and say, hey guys, we're going the wrong way. So just something to think about, something to consider, I hope. If you have not subscribed to the channel, please subscribe to the channel. If you like the video, give us a thumbs up. Of course, if you have any questions, you have any comments, whether those are agree or disagree, drop it down in the comments section. We'll see what we can do about meeting you there and answering your question. If you want us to do a video, if there's something you want us to discuss or something to deal with, by all means, put that in the comments section as well. We'll see what we can do about addressing that here on the channel. In any case, thanks everyone for tuning in. It's good to see y'all. We'll talk to you later.